Okay, right. What are we covering today? So, I'm going to go through the PIIPS framework. Now, many of you will have heard me talking about this. It's the framework that I use for myself, it's the framework that I teach my clients and community and help them to learn how to apply it. This is a very simple framework in that there are 5 pillars and each of those pillars all work in together. So it's not 5 pillars in isolation, the 5 pillars all work through together. And the 5 pillars, I believe, are the elements that are most important for us to be successful. And not just be successful on paper, but aligned success. So success that feels as good as it looks. So I go through this with clients. I help clients to take the principle, not necessarily the plan that I use, because that's the way that works for me, but to take the principle of the framework and apply those 5 key pillars to their work, but also to life as well. So it's really important to look at how all of these pillars work together so that success is aligned. So we want to make sure that the work that we do and how we show up in the world is purposeful, that it is in alignment with our values, that it does help us to fulfill that sense of purpose and also to create the impact. And that, I think is what a lot of us are here for, is to create impact. So the PIIPS framework came about after I'd been asked a question on a podcast just about 18 months ago now. And I was out in Cyprus. I had been a guest on a podcast. The person interviewing me had asked questions around my success and my comeback story and overcoming adversity and what I had done in my lifetime so far. And he had asked me what I did. What did I do that was different, that helped me not just to pick myself back up, but also just to kind of keep that momentum going. And I often talk about how the things that I would say help me to survive and overcome have also been the things that, used proactively, have helped me to be really successful. And after the podcast, I went for a long walk. I do lots of walking when I'm in Cyprus. It gives me lots of thinking and creative time. And I went for a long walk and I was thinking about the things that I had done, and I was thinking about the things that I had done every time. So what was the common, or what were the common things that I had done that had helped me to overcome and helped me to not just move on, but also move up. And that's where the framework first came in. So if you watch the free training that is on YouTube, and I'll link it in, you'll see the scribble from where I tried to put it together on my phone. So it's evolved a bit since then. So there are 5 pillars: plan, intention, identity, performance, and structure. So they all weave in together. They are all interlinked. So the first one is plan. So just being really clear on your outcome, mapping in your steps, identifying what resources you need. So I've just spent an hour and a half with my coach and a group of other coaches and we've spent the time, 90 minutes thinking about the last 90 days and focusing on the next 90 days. What do we want from our business? What do we want our days to look like? How do we want to show up for our clients? All really important questions and all part of the planning. So the planning is really important. Now, I always say that with my background in the police, planning was part of it, but we were very good at being reactive. And as a business owner, we need to be reactive, but we also need to be proactive and make sure that we plan as well. So we really need to think things through. We really need to plan the detail. So that's the first one, is plan. Second one is intention. We need to make sure that we are aligning our actions with our purpose, with our values, and with that longer term vision. So we might talk in waves of 90 days as a business owner, but we also need to have that direction. We need to know where we're going. So whilst we might break it down into the blocks of the 90 days to help us to plan and move forward, we do need that bigger vision to know what direction we are going in. The third one is identity. So the second I, identity. Now, for those of you who've read books like James Clear's Atomic Habits, and there's plenty others that are like that. They talk about embodying the habits and the mindsets and the behaviors of somebody who is successful in what we are trying to achieve. So in coaching, we call it mirroring excellence. So we look at who is already able to do what we want to do, and we look at the difference that makes the difference. What is it that they do that we are not yet doing? Or perhaps what is it that they don't do that we are doing that we need to stop doing, or maybe reduce? So we can mirror the excellence of other people. We can also mirror the excellence of ourselves. So as a coach, one of the questions I will often ask people is, where have they been successful with something that is like this? Or where and what skills do they need to have to be successful for this? And where have they used them before? What transferable skills have they got? Where can they mirror their own excellence? So quite often people will say that they're very organized in work, not so organized at home, as an example. So what we'll talk through is, where can they mirror their own excellence? Where can they take what is already working in one area of life and apply the same principles and perhaps the same plan to that other area of life? So we can mirror other people's excellence, but we can also mirror our own. But we need to think about that future version of ourselves that has already been successful. What is it that they do differently? How do they show up? What habits, mindset, behaviors do they have? What do they believe is true? And then we can bring that forward and we can act as if that has already happened. So we can very intentionally show up every day and embody the habits, the mindsets and the behaviors of the person who is already successful. So the second P, and pillar number 4, is performance. Now, all of us will have very individual needs as to what feeds into us being able to perform at a high level. So for people in leadership, understanding what each individual within their teams needs to perform at a high level, it's going to be very different. So you could have 10 people on your team and all 10 people could need something slightly different to be able to perform at that high level. Now, we know ourselves better than anybody else knows us. We know what works. We know what doesn't work. And whether we have something in place that we know works really well for us, or whether we are working things through trial and error, we know what works for us in terms of how our own brains work, in terms of our energy. We know that there will be some things that work really well for other people that might also work for us. And we know that there will some things that we can see other people doing it. That is not going to work for me. So we need to understand, what is it that we need to perform at that high level? And then we need to be able to identify, what can we be consistent with? Where might we need to build up some resilience to help us to be more consistent? Where might we need to work on our confidence and our mindset to be able to show up to that regularly, consistently, and at that high level? And where do we need to be more disciplined? Because we can't wait for motivation. Motivation is a feeling. We can't always bring that feeling in, but what we can do is take action, and discipline is an action. So it's much easier for us to plan for discipline and take the action on the day and the time that we have planned it, than waiting for a feeling to tell us when to act. So performance is the 4th pillar. And then the 5th pillar is structure. So this is the one that holds it all together. So we have identified what we want to do through the plan. We've identified how we're going to show up with intention, making sure that it aligns with everything that's most important to us. We've worked out the identity that we need to be successful with this. And we've looked at the performance habits that we need to make it all happen. So now we need to create a structure that allows all of this to take place and protects it. So we've spent some time working out what is important. Now we need to make sure that we've got a system in place that has the routines, a system or systems and processes and boundaries to protect what we have identified is important. So that is the PIIPS framework in a nutshell and in a very short explanation. So what I'm going to do now is go through that framework, and I'm going to give you 3 things from each of those pillars that you can implement today. You can implement them straight after this call, and it's going to help you and your business to be more successful. Okay, so let's go through those 5 pillars. So first one, plan. The planning is really important. And when you are caught up in that cycle of busyness within your business or within the day-to-day, then it can be very easy to put off the planning, to say, I'll just do that later. So I want you to think about setting a weekly CEO hour, blocking an hour at the start of your week to review your priorities, plan the tasks that need to happen, and make sure that the actions that you are planning in align with those bigger goals. So set an hour at the beginning of the week to look at your business, to look at the area of business that you work in, and look at what needs to happen. Number 2, I want you to choose a weekly word. So this is something that I do with the Aligned Success community. I will often ask at the beginning of a week, what's your focus? What are your priorities? And what's your word for this week? So the word might be something that people use to prompt that reaction or as a reminder of what's important. So the words really vary. So I want you to think about that word for the week that's going to help you to stay on track, help you to stay focused, help you to keep those priorities at the top of the list. So that's the second one. And then the third one is to use the rule of 3. So we will have an endless list of to-do tasks. And let's be real, that we don't get to the end of the to-do list. So we want to make sure that we are prioritizing what is most important and that we are focusing our energy and attention there first before we go to anything else. So each day, write down 3 tasks that are going to move things forward. So I normally work with 2 start and finish tasks because it's nice to cross things off the list, and then 1 task that chips away at a bigger activity. So if you use the rule of 3, make sure that you have got activities in place that help you to move your work forward. Okay, intention. Here are your 3 things for intention. Start your day with a 3-minute check-in. Just 3 minutes. It might not even take 3 minutes. Ask yourself at the beginning of every day, what do I need to do today? What matters most? And where do I need my attention and focus to be today to make things happen? So just take a couple of minutes to check in with what's most important before you go about your day. Otherwise, what happens is we open our messages or we open our emails, and that determines the pace, the direction, and the focus of the day. So we want to make sure that we are setting that, not other people. So start your day with a 3-minute check-in. You can use the 4 Ds to make sure that you are in alignment each day. So as part of that 3-minute check-in, you can think about the direction that you want to go in, how you need to design that day, the decisions that you need to make happen. So there are 3 Ds to check in: direction, design, and decision. And then the 4th D is making sure that you do that daily. That will make sure that you stay in alignment and you stay on track. 3rd, create a no list. So write down 3 things you are not going to do this week to protect your priorities. So boundaries are really important. Saying no is really important, because if we say yes to everything, we are saying no almost by default. So we want to make sure that we're saying no by design. So I want you to think about 3 things that you need to say no to help you to stay on track, to help to protect those protect the priorities, tongue twister, help you to protect the priorities of the day and of the week. Okay, identity. Act like the future you. Every time you make a decision, ask whether or not the most successful person would make the same decision. Ask ask yourself what the future version of you, the one who is already successful, who's already running their business or running their team the way you want to, and ask what would that future version of you decide right now. because sometimes we can get very much caught in the way of doing things, and sometimes we need to think about how we do want to do things. In a similar vein, upgrade one habit. Pick one habit that you have that you can upgrade that will make a difference. So, it might be, so something I'm trying to do at the moment is to move more during the day, because I know when I have days like today, like yesterday, where it's lots of client focus, I'm sitting in the chair for long periods of time. So I'm at the moment trying to move a little bit more, which often means it gets to the end of the day and I'm walking around the block. It's nice when it's weather like this, but I'm walking around the block to try and make sure that I have that movement each day. That is my upgrade habit. That and lots of extra water to stay hydrated. So think about the habits that you can have, and they're probably going to be fundamental habits, the things that look after yourself, that help you to upgrade. Now, it might be personally, like movement, like water, or it might be for your business. So it might be that you spend 10 minutes every day reaching out and starting conversations with people who you're connected with in your network, so that you keep those conversations going. So it is entirely up to you. What do you want to move forward? And think about one habit that you can upgrade that is going to help with that. And then celebrate your wins. Every week, celebrate your wins, especially on the tougher weeks. This is something I ask the aligned community every week. We do an end of week check-in in the Facebook group at the end of every week. I offer, that post comes out to say your wins and your bins. What are you celebrating this week and what are you throwing away in the bin? We need to make sure that we are noticing and recognizing the wins, because some days, some weeks are tougher than others, and recognizing the wins is really important. And within that, there'll be some learning there too. Performance. Track your energy, not just time. So think about where your energy is at its highest. So for me, I know that my focus time is much better in the morning. And so any longer focused tasks, I do first thing. And often my brain is much more creative in the morning. So that's where I put those priority tasks. So think about where your energy needs to be in terms of tracking your energy. Don't just time manage, energy manage as well. So think about focus, think about creativity, think about when you're best with people for your client work, and look at how you can create a routine and a structure around that. Create a minimum viable routine. So instead of all or nothing habits, pick a sustainable baseline. So, rather than over planning and then under delivering, think about the small things that you can do, the minimum viable routine. So it might be a 20-minute. So for me, it's the 8,000 steps, which I'm slowly building up because they were very, very low. So the 10,000 steps is not, for me, it's not, I'd be setting myself up to fail if I said I wanted to have 10,000 steps every day. So I started at 6 and then moved to 7, and now I'm moving to 8 and slowly building on that and into my routine. And you can use the AAA time framework. So I've covered this in previous videos, but you can look at your to-do list and you can separate it into those 3 areas. So ascend, which is your growth tasks, anchor, which is your maintenance tasks, and avoid, which are your draining tasks. Now, we can't always avoid some of the tasks that are on our to-do list, but what we can do is look at how we balance those tasks to make sure that it's balanced out over the course of the day. And finally, structure. Time block your calendar. Set your time blocks in. So you can either you can create working blocks. So you're working for an hour or 2 hours in a period and then you take a break. You can group together similar tasks to help you with that deep focus work. And you can also look at time blocking to match your energy levels. So focus, creativity, time, and tasks would go in the time of day where you are able to do that work. Create a done for the day checklist. So end your workday with a really simple routine. And it's really important to create that stop, because work will fill the gap. Parkinson's law, if you've got 10 hours, you will fill the 10 hours. So we want to make sure we've got that hard stop. So know when you're going to finish for the day, and then create a done for the day checklist. So simple routine, clear down your inbox or delay it for the next day, or create tasks and schedule them in. Write the 3 priority tasks for the following day, which is what we talked about earlier, and then switch off all of the tech and walk away from it. So have a very clear mental sign that you are done and you are switching off. So you can batch similar tasks together for that time blocking. So you can create them in. That helps create that flow state and helps your brain to work in that optimal way of focusing in on certain activities. It reduces decision fatigue and it reduces mental load and will free up your time. So that's 15 things I've just gone through. That is 15 things that you can do to help you to be more successful in your business in an aligned way.